Welcome to the Spa Hive podcast. We're your hosts, Julie Pankey
and MaryAnn, spa leaders, business strategists, and business besties who are pulling back the curtain on what it actually takes to grow a business and a life you don't secretly want to escape from.
This is where leadership meets honesty, where revenue meets relationships, and where we talk about the things no one puts on Instagram.
So, if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, or a high achiever who's building something meaningful, but also navigating team dynamics, burnout, boundaries, and big goals, you're in the right place.
No highlight reels, no sugarcoating, just real conversations, practical strategy, and a little laughter along the way. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back to the Spa Hive podcast. I'm Julie Pinkey, your host with my business bestie, my co-host, MaryAnn Sassine. Good morning, MaryAnn.
Good morning. Good morning, Julie Pankey. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great.
That's wonderful.
Feeling good. Feeling good. I already unloaded on you before the podcast, so now I'm feeling great.
That's good. I always love those sessions.
I love to bring you into my world.
Well, it does help me figure out where your mind is these days, so that is helpful, and what your temperature gauge is. So I like it. And I like to be in the know, obviously. I love
I know
tea.
you
That
do.
doesn't have to be mine, so it's great.
Yes. So this week we're talking about 3 things that might make life seem bigger. The surprising habits that make life feel more meaningful, memorable, and alive. So I had this thought recently while I was driving home from work because, I have a lot of thoughtful time while I'm driving. Although I do binge listen to my books so I can get them done faster, which is a good segue into our next episode when we talk about our book. But I digress. Days can feel really full. Meetings, emails, responsibilities, family, projects, the endless things that need our attention. I was talking to our friend Chris on the phone yesterday, and I was like, I don't know even how I have time to work in, like, how I can work into my life, or how I work. Well, it's really not how I work into my life, how I work life into my work. I don't know. They're the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
That, sometimes like people look up and they think, why does it feel like I'm constantly busy,
Right.
but nothing memorable is happening? What's interesting is that I'm in the season of life, and that's why I think the podcast is really great for everyone, because we talk about like the different periods, right, of our life, and we come from like a little bit different perspectives sometimes. When I look back and I realize that, wow, a lot has happened, not because I'm constantly excited, because honestly, most days I'm busy, overwhelmed, sometimes tired. I don't feel like I'm as excited as a person as I used to be, like everything. And that's what Chris and I were talking about. Like, things used to be shiny and new, and I'm like, let's do this and let's add this and let's do that. And then I'm like, now I'm like, this is taking up all of my bandwidth. Like, it's hard for me to get excited about like doing something super new. Or like if you're going on a trip, it's like I don't feel like I get all like same giddy and excited sometimes as I once did. And oftentimes that's because I think that I'm like busy, tired.
Yeah.
And so I sometimes don't let myself have that space, but I do try to focus less on excitement sometimes and more of just being grateful, like grateful that I get to do meaningful work,
Right.
grateful for the friends and people that I have in my life, grateful that I'm still learning, right? That, our conversation prior to going online, could have been a conversation we had literally 10 years ago.
Right.
And, like you continue to learn and evolve in certain areas. I still am creating. So it made me wonder, like, what is it that makes life feel rich? And, why does it look like I'm busy all the time? Whether it's me or someone else saying, like, do you ever say to yourself, why does it feel like I'm busy all the time, but nothing memorable is happening? Does it mean you're unhappy?
Right.
So we're going to talk about, getting stuck in routines and, the three things that make life bigger. How do we make life feel bigger without necessarily making it busier?
Let me ask you this. Did you and Chris figure it out?
No,
Mhm.
no,
Uh,
no. We then just
Digressed.
then we asked ourselves, when should we retire?
I see. Good question.
So no, we
So,
didn't figure it out. But, the one thing that we did agree on is that, most of the times we do love what we do, which is what makes it harder,
yeah,
to want to step away and, feel really passionate about the things, that we do.
right. That makes sense. Well, did you figure out when you're gonna retire?
No,
Okay. You should let me know when you know, okay?
I will.
Perfect.
How's September?
Gosh, don't say that to me. You're gonna throw me right over the edge. Uh-huh. I'm gonna need like 6 months notice. This is gonna be a whole life thing. I've gotta figure this out. We're gonna spiral off this topic. So let's talk about what you said, things that can make life feel bigger, right? So our first thing is novelties, new experiences, right? Research consistently shows that new experiences help our brain create richer memories and can make time feel fuller. A study that I was reading about says people who engage in new and in challenging experiences tend to report higher levels of happiness and life satisfaction because novelty activates the brain's reward systems.
Mhm.
So
I
let's
believe
see.
that.
Yeah, right, exactly. Don't you feel like that sometimes when you try something new and even if you don't like love it or you don't necessarily think you'll do it again, you're like, you know what? It got me out of my comfort zone. I did something different. I talked to someone maybe I wouldn't have talked to before or gone someplace I wouldn't have gone.
Uh-huh.
And it kind of just shakes things up a little bit.
Right.
So, I feel like we have to make sure that, like you said, how do we make it feel bigger without it feeling more busy? So it doesn't mean booking a trip to Europe, right? That
Mhm.
would be wonderful. But for a lot of us, that's not realistic.
Right.
Definitely doesn't mean quitting your job,
Or retiring.
or retiring, right? And it doesn't mean you have to overhaul or reinvent your whole life. It can be as easy as taking a different route home. You could see something different, maybe stop at that store that you always wanted to stop at, trying a new restaurant, reading a different genre,
Mhm.
which could be cool. Could not be cool. I'm not sure how much I enjoy that one. Visiting a local town that you've never explored or learning a skill just for fun, not trying to turn it into a side hustle, not trying to monetize it, but doing something just for fun. I
Yeah.
love that.
I mean, I think about this all the time. When people that I know tell me that they're like going on vacation in August, and I'm like, what? Like, we live in the most beautiful state. People by the droves, millions. I mean, I don't know the count last year, but millions of people, flood to Maine
Right.
to experience the things that we have sitting in our own backyard. And so, a lot of times we spend years, right, waiting for the big trip or the big opportunity or your big moment and overlook, the little adventures that we have available to us. Like Gary and I are going, not next week, I think the week after, to Newport, Rhode Island, right? It's 2 hours away. There's this like cool garden show we want to go to. And it's just like a little 2-night experience in New England in a beautiful time of year where we live in such, an amazing part of the country that, it doesn't have to be like big, and crazy. And then I think about like my master gardener class. I didn't take the class because I need another certification, or because I want to advance my career. I just wanted to learn. I love
Yeah.
gardening. I love to talk to people about gardening that know more than me because I don't know that much. And I wanted to challenge myself because I don't want to say I like to because that's not true. I wanted to challenge myself to be a beginner at something again.
Yes.
Not the expert in the room on something, but a beginner about something.
Yeah, I think that's important. I feel like learning new things, especially as we are adults, I think that's really still valuable. And knowing that you can still learn things is
Right.
important. Because I feel like, a lot of times people can be now stuck in their career
Uh-huh.
or, just be doing their lives, right? And just knowing that you're still able to learn things. And when you learn, it does activate a different part of your brain. I think that's really important. I was just having this conversation with my sister. Now, this had to do with work, right? So, not necessarily just like something about life feeling better, but it was something about work. And she was making a graph in Excel. Um, and she's like, yeah, I just don't know how to do it. And she's like, I'm just going to tell my boss, I just don't know how to do it. And I was like, well, you could say that, or you could just learn and do it. And
Right.
she's like, yeah, but I don't know how to do it. And I was like, yes, you would learn and know how to do it.
Right. Then you
And
would know how to do it. Yeah.
yeah. And so
There's
after,
like a quick Excel for Dummies class, or, gosh, you can put the data into your chat GPT
yes.
and
Well,
then have an Excel or
her
Copilot.
co-pilot was not working that day. And so after she had this situation at work, we talked about it afterwards and she's like, "Well, how do you think I handled it right?" I said, "Look, the only thing that I thought was that you did wrong is that it felt like when I was talking to you, you weren't confident in your ability to still learn things."
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And I was like, "And that you need to be confident in that." I'm like, "I'm not saying you need to learn how to do brain surgery. Like, I'm not saying that, right? You're not gonna
No,
become
and you don't
probably."
have to be an Excel aficionado.
No.
Like, none
No.
of us mostly want that.
No. But, like, you still have this capability of learning new things, and it's still good for you even if you're, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and up.
Right.
It's still good to keep learning.
Exactly. Well, I remember when you told me not to like throw one of your sisters under the bus, but that one of your sisters was doing dance class
Yes.
and, learning, was it ballet or just dance in
Yes.
general? And I thought that
Ballet.
was really cool because, I don't know if I would like, I would be scared to walk into an adult dance class and learn ballet, in, putting on a ballet outfit in my
Right.
shape and being, in
Yeah.
front of people, like bearing it out. You kind of, it's almost like bearing your soul a little bit, to people that watch you be vulnerable in something that you're learning, not just like I'm learning master gardener and I'm not like on stage in front of people.
Right.
talking about master
Master
gardening.
gardening.
Yeah. And so I remember thinking, wow, like that's really brave. And, I was, not envious, but thought that it was really cool that she like stepped outside her comfort zone to learn something that she's been wanting to learn. Um,
Yes.
you know, at
Yeah, definitely.
an adult age.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just still really important that you keep learning. So with
Number two.
that, let's go to number two. Okay, so number two piggybacks on what we talked about last week, right? Is creativity, right? So just being more creative can make your life feel bigger. So if you missed last week's episode, swing back to last week because we talk about things that are killing our creativity. And so it's really good, insightful podcast, especially if you feel like you're in that same boat these days.
Right.
So let's talk about creativity. So creating instead of consuming. When is the last time you created something? Not for money, not for Instagram, but just because you enjoyed it. Julie, I think this goes into definitely your gardening. That I feel like right now is really your biggest creative outlet.
Right. And it's also a big money suck, man.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I
Having hobbies sometimes
I
having hobbies
noticed
is for the rich.
I
But
noticed Gary put my picture up at the greenhouse that says do not let her in anymore because I'm like, I just need a couple more things. He's
yes.
like, really? Like, what more can you need? But, he indulges, my passion for creating this really beautiful space, which it is. And this morning I spent a good long time scrolling Facebook Marketplace
For
for
what?
I found I guess like a lot of plant planters for $50. And it's like, I think it was like 30 planters plus shepherd's hook and some trellises. And it's in Newmarket, New Hampshire, which isn't that far away. And I'm like, do I have time to go fill up the back of my car with all these planters? I
Oh,
just
Julie.
saved it for later because, I never make good decisions when I'm scrolling early in the morning or late at night.
Yeah.
So I saved it. But yes, it is a super creative outlet. And I feel like one of the biggest lies that adulthood tells us is that like creativity, and I say this all the time, belongs to artists because it doesn't. It
Yes.
belongs to all of us, to humans. And I'm always like, I have to engage that part of my brain. I want to do something more like artsy, and it's just as easy as like me going outside in the morning and digging in dirt and creating,
Yes.
a beautiful space. Like it doesn't mean that I have to, create a whole like artist studio and quit my job and start making baskets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like when we were talking about creativity last week, I think that is something that I have realized because for years, right, you always talk about you go through ebbs and flows of when you're like, "Oh, I'm not feeling creative," right? I need to bring back my creative side. And that has ebbed and flowed, right? And so for a long time, in my mind, creativity was purely about like art,
Right.
right? And like you're like and so I'm like, "Oh, what does she mean? Like she's not creative, like she needs to paint or draw or do, pottery?"
Right. And I think sometimes, for me, it's like the act of planting and doing and then seeing the space is a result. But also, I can spend hours like writing in my notebook on what plants I want to add, what garden spaces I might want to expand, how I could move my plants around, or these plants I don't really like don't really like these white ones. So I'm going to put them all together into like another pot. And then I'm going to get these other white ones to fill it because I don't like the way that these filled. And so the next thing I know is that I'm imagining, I'm
Yeah.
using my imagination to visualize in my mind what it's going to look like. And nothing productive happened, really.
Yeah.
I'm just creating in my mind what it could be. I didn't check anything off my list. I didn't accomplish any big thing, but I spent the time in my mind creating. And then that, I feel like for me, like translates into turning that switch of creativity for other areas as well. Because I spend a great deal of my life creating experiences for other people.
Right.
And, I got to tell you that floating sound bath that we did, it's I can't believe, I mean, it's something that I've been planning for 2 years, right?
2
And so
years.
it's planning, right? My
Yeah.
creativity started 2 years ago, and it's getting it to actually come to fruition. And so we have another sound bath at the end of June. And by popular demand, they asked for it to be floating, and we've already sold it out. It's like our first wellness event that I've been building for 2 years for people to come to our wellness events, and it's already sold out. And our
Oh, that's
July
so great.
sound bath is already on its way to sell out. The
I
video
love it.
that Rachel posted, I think she said had over 10,000 views. So it doesn't happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like I have visualized and planned these kinds of things in my head for literally years. MaryAnn knows, literally years.
Yeah. We've been talking about floating sound bath for years upon years. So when Julie and the team there were able to execute this, I personally felt a part of it as well because I've been hearing about it for 2
Right.
years.
Right. And I will say, like, as I stepped back and looked at it, I got tears in my eyes.
Were you like,
And
"MaryAnn would be so proud."
yeah, I said, MaryAnn would be so, we did
You
it.
you finally did it.
And then the wedding upstairs kicked in, and I
Wow.
hear boom, 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 boom. And I was like, and then I'm like, nope, nope, you do this, Julie. Don't diminish it. Like
Yeah,
it's
don't diminish your accomplishment. Absolutely. So other ways to be creative, right? Because creativity can definitely make your life feel a little bit bigger. Other ways are baking or
yeah.
cooking, right?
Uh-huh.
You get stuck in routines and you get stuck in ruts. So sometimes just trying that viral recipe you maybe wanted to try can shake it up a little bit. Rearranging a room, which I love. I love to rearrange a room. And I don't necessarily do it amazingly. And I don't by any means have like cohesive furniture all over my house. Like I feel like I'm in
Right.
that time of my life where I'm like, oh, still getting things like when people are giving them away.
Right.
Like,
Right.
oh, my older sister isn't using this in our house anymore. I will take it. I do have one really beautiful rug that I bought myself that did not come from anybody. And it was like my first decision.
Yeah.
And I do love that rug. I do love that rug. But, rearranging a room, I want to rearrange my master bedroom every single day. And I'm going to do it very soon. I've decided that's just being creative, right?
Right.
Planning something or building something. Creativity is just not for artists. A study of 650 adults found that people experience greater flourishing and positive emotions on days following creative activity.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I find that really interesting because maybe there's ways in your morning routine or at the beginning of your day that you can add a little bit of creativity in it to really change the trajectory of your day. We're not about 7-step morning routines here, but
Right.
I do love like a good experiment and a good challenge. So maybe
Uh-huh.
there are ways that you could just add something a little bit different in the morning or whenever you start your day and see
Right.
how it goes.
Yeah, we should start thinking of our fall challenge.
Yeah, I know. We do love a good fall challenge.
We do. So peeps, we're gonna start thinking of a fall challenge for us all. Also, did I see you put on your Osea hyaluronic lip booster?
I did. I did put on my Osea hyaluronic lip booster.
I
I have
saw
been
that.
having
Do you love it?
I do love it. Yes. I've
I
been
sold
having
like 3 of them yesterday because I just
Really?
happened to be hanging around and people looking at stuff, and I just like to talk to people.
Well, you should always use me as an example. You should be like, "You know what? Totally unrelated, but my friend." And then people are like, "Yeah, really?" And you'll be like, "Yeah." And then you'll sell it because you're having a real conversation.
Right.
Yeah, no, I've been loving the Osea hyaluronic lip booster. I've been using it now, well, since you graciously gave it to me. And it's been working great. I love it. I even like it over a color. I've got a couple
Okay.
of like lip pencils that sometimes I use when I'm feeling fresh and creative.
Nice.
And yeah, right. And it's great. Love it. Love it.
Cool. All right. Let's jump into number 3.
All right. So, number three, our third thing that can make life feel a little bit bigger is connections.
Mhm. Mhm.
Real human connections. And that's no surprise, right? The U.S. Surgeon General Advisory reported that loneliness carries health risk comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. And approximately half of U.S. adults report experiencing loneliness. So, real connections, right? Not just for the followers, not just for the likes,
Right.
not just group texts, even though group texts are phenomenal, but actual connection, which, Julie, you were doing these things yesterday and you just had no idea. You had a whole phone conversation with Chris.
I know, and we both always say, "Oh my god, I miss these chats." Like we let
Yeah,
too much time in between go because we really can relate to each other in in a good way that it's nice to talk to someone, and you don't make the time all the time, like having that meaningful conversation with a friend. And it doesn't have to be deep, right? Sometimes it is. I mean, you've been on calls with Chris and I, and it goes everywhere.
I love it. He's just has such a great personality. Yeah, so it can be examples of like coffee with a friend. That's wonderful. And let's say you're in a position right now where you can't necessarily get out to meet people, right? Or maybe you live far away from pals you used to have or your family, right? Calling, and better yet, I think even FaceTiming, if you can, video chatting
Mhm.
someone instead of texting, I think is great.
Whoa, 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 wait, whoa. Let's back up.
What?
Calling instead of texting?
When you
Calling
want,
instead of email? This
no,
millennial
no, this is
is
to people who I want to talk to. Nobody start calling us because I will literally just email you back. No, this is people that I want to talk to.
doesn't have to be a meeting if it can be an email.
Yes, exactly. No, I am saying, I feel like that was one great thing that came out of the pandemic, right? Which was horrible.
Yes.
But, like my husband's family, they finally got a smartphone so that they could FaceTime with us because they couldn't
Right.
meet their grandkids for how long, right? And so
Right,
they
right.
finally got a smartphone and they can FaceTime, and that was huge. And, I remember George's dad saying, yeah, like, look, if it wasn't for this device, I wouldn't have met my grandkids yet. Like, this is amazing thing.
Right.
I think I try to FaceTime Julie sometimes. Maybe we should do it more. That'd be kind of fun,
Yeah,
right?
maybe we should.
I
I
gotta
usually
FaceTime you in the
say,
middle of
"Why
the
are
day.
you FaceTiming me?"
I know. Sometimes I'll call you because I just need to say something quick or like tell you the whole story. And I feel like that always throws you for a loop. You're like, why is she calling me?
Yeah, that's my, Gen X slash millennial side of me.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I've noticed that some of the best moments of my year aren't necessarily like big momentous events, right?
Right.
They're like ordinary moments, the conversations, the times that you laugh and you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't laughed like that in a really long time. And shared experiences that then become memories without you even realizing it. It's not like a planned memory, like I'm going to go do this, and like we talked about last week, I'm going to capture it, on my, like, spend my whole time capturing the memories instead of living the memory. No, it's something that you think back and look at, the day that we launched the sound bath, floating sound bath, is a memory that'll stick with me.
Me too.
It didn't, and it didn't change my life, right?
No.
It wasn't like this big, like, momentous thing, it was just, part of your day, really, that you've been building for.
So, life doesn't necessarily feel bigger because we have more money, more followers, more stuff, or a fuller calendar. But it really feels bigger when we have different and new experiences. We let our creativity flow and we make more connection, which I think the good thing is that supports the habit of little things can go a long way, right? We're big followers of that, in health and wellness, but also in different aspects in life. You don't need to revamp the entire house to feel a little bit different. Maybe one room at a time, right?
Uh-huh. I Let's be honest, all of those workaholics, and overproductive people that focus on perfection, right, versus progress. The end of the year, you're not going to say, this was the year that I answered 4,000 emails. You go, girl. This was the year that, my inbox stayed at 0. No, it's not. The things you remember are going to be the special moments, with friends, with kids, with family, some of the favorite books that you've read, right? Laughter and shared experiences. I think about Donnie a lot. I have to have lunch with her because, we had a lot of laughs with her, some real belly laughs.
I do miss her. I do miss her a lot. I know she's doing great things with her business, but she needs to come back into the fold and give us some more laughs, right? So we challenge you this week to take one of those three things we talked about, more experiences, more creativity, more connection, and implement them, right? Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
Mhm.
And, sometimes life starts feeling bigger the moment we decide to be a little more present in the one we are already living. Um, if you need a little boost with your creativity and you want to pick up a new book, we are reading a Spa Hive book club for this season. It is You Deserve to Know by Aggie Thompson. I think next week we will do our book club segment. So we'll talk through the book, but you can always grab it now and listen to that segment later on. We both have really enjoyed the book. It definitely, I feel like, is a little bit of a different genre for Julie. So maybe that made you a little bit more creative, Julie. It was right up my alley, and I'm excited to talk about it next week.
Yeah, I think so. Genre change. Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a different, not way off because I have read some like that, but I have on my list to read Project Hail Mary, which I think would be a big kind of departure from my normal genre. So I haven't tackled it yet. And it's
Yeah.
still like on my maybe list because I'm not sure if I want to veer that far off
Yeah.
kind of my typical reading list. So stay tuned for that. I mean, we still have 6.5 months of the year, but Yes. So yeah, next week, I mean, MaryAnn and I both read that book in like a week.
Oh, yeah.
So you have, I mean, probably less than a week, but grab the book and, you could get it done this week so you can share in on the conversation with us next week. Or like MaryAnn said, read it at your leisure and then bookmark next week's episode so we can talk together about the book. I don't have anything more to add. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody here live next time in our spa hive. Have a great week.
Bye, Julie.
Goodbye, MaryAnn.
Bye, Julie. Bye, listeners.
Thank you so much for joining us today in the spa hive.
If this episode sparked an idea, made you think differently, or just made you feel a little less alone in business or life, share it with someone who might need it too.
Don't forget to follow the podcast so you never miss a conversation.
And check out the show notes for links, resources, and ways to stay connected with us, including the Spa 101 course taught by our very own Julie Pinky.
We're so grateful you're part of this community.
And we'll see you next time.